My next door neighbor here, well, we're 3 acres apart. I have 3 acres. He's got 3 acres. These are new houses, but I don't know what he does for a living, but he's got a lot of money. And I wanted fiber, but AT&T didn't carry it around here. And whatever he does, he needed it bad. So he paid 5 grand to run fiber to his house, and then AT&T charged me $60 a month to have it spliced off of him. And
Typical
so
board of trade. Hey, man, that's more drinks for me, baby.
I just thought, so now I invite him to every party to pay him back, but that's it.
I was just talking about like when we tried to do a podcast before. And so what I'll do is like if there's a time when you're like vacationing in Bermuda or something, I will pull one of those up and
Yeah.
we'll release that. But I warned everybody, I said, it was kind of fun in a way because really what it always boiled down to was the cow guy and I arguing about things.
Oh, that's right. That was over COVID.
It was over COVID and we started arguing about like whether to wear a mask or not and then how far you should stand away from each other. But then it became like we just argued about everything. And I loved it. But then we
Yeah.
had, then the political correctness kind of caught in and we had to we both had to walk away or I probably would have gotten canceled. I almost did get canceled twice, but here I am still.
Yeah. Right.
Hey, I do want to tell you something. If you're, I do a lot of podcasts now and a lot of radio shows, and it's not like the old days where I was, just kind of screwing around, I guess. I try to give a little bit of something people can use. I do the Limb Walkers podcast. I do the Mastering Local Marketing podcast. I do the Weezer podcast. And I'm doing you, and we want to tell your story, but I do want to tell you about a minor incident. You kept talking about you choose to be happy. You choose, you choose, you choose. And you just kept saying that word. And I'm like, all right, I'm done with the podcast. I'm gonna go take my nap right after this. And so I sleep in, I'm thinking about it. And then the next day, the wife starts chewing on me on something or other, right? She was kind of, I think, in a bad mood. The reason I think she was in a bad mood is because I was home
Yeah.
and
Right.
she hates me being home in the morning. I've been doing a radio show for years. Now I don't do it every day. So I'm like, hey, how's it going? You want some eggs? Blah, blah, blah. And she just started getting kind of shitty. And then I needed to get a car done. So I had to drive her to work and we're driving. And then finally I look at her and I go, you know what? You can choose to do what you're doing, or you can choose to enjoy the rest of this ride. What's it going to be? It's your choice. And I'll be doggone if she didn't stop. I mean, she's a lawyer, so they don't ever get, they always have a comeback, right?
Right. Yeah.
And she just, for the first time in a long time, she's like, you know what? I guess you're right. Here we are. We've been married 37 years or something, and we're chilling out together, and it's sunny out, and you're a little bit funny. So, all right, I choose to enjoy the rest of the ride. I wanted to tell you that because you get lost in your life and you forget to boil it down to a couple of simple concepts. Does that make any sense?
1,000%. I mean, I don't always make the right choice, Jim. I mean, I cry. I think I told you this the last time. I love Jim Valvano and the ESPN thing that he did about how he's an Italian guy, and if you got to laugh real hard every day, you got to cry real hard every day, and you have to spend a decent amount of time in thought every day, and that's a full day. And I love that. And I'm not perfect. Sometimes I fall down, but yeah, you know what? When having my daughter die was probably the worst. Hopefully, that's the worst thing that ever happens to me in my entire life. But um, you come to a point where you're like, all right, I wished God would kill me every night for 60 days, and He didn't. So now, if I'm going to be here, I might as well make it worthwhile. I mean, what the heck? What's it worth to be a drug addict down on Skid Row? Or I mean, I just thought to myself, I'm going to choose to be happy. I mean, it just. I also had somebody tell me a long time ago it takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile. So if you think about the effort that you have to put into your day, you might as well. Sometimes it takes. Sometimes it takes more energy to be angry all the time. You know what I mean? Like, you ever listen to some TV shows and you're like, how does that guy stay angry every day all the time? It's tiring. Every now and again, you want to be happy. So I thought, screw this. I'm just going to choose to be happy, and I'm going to look to the bright side of things. And some days it gets to me. I can't. I'm sad. But man, it really got me through all the tough times. A little bit of Winston Churchill, when you're going through hell, keep going, kind of thing, gets you through as well. But it's been something I've been able to carry over. And when people look at me, when they know my story, they say, "How are you standing? How are you standing? Your daughter dies. The man you admired most in your life dies 4 or 5 days after the person you adored most in your life. You have a 25-year marriage collapse and you get divorced. Your job gets obfuscated to electronics, so you lose what you've done for 25 years for a living. You have to reinvent yourself. I mean, there were hurdles. It seemed like every 6 months I had a new big hurdle I had to get over. And so I thought to myself, this sucks, but I might as well have fun. If what else are you going to do? It already sucks bad enough when I go home and mope and have it suck some more. No, I'm going to go have a pint with the guys, laugh at some stupid stuff, and get a girlfriend and have a good time going out with her. I mean, you have to make an effort to be happy. It just doesn't happen naturally. It takes effort.
How long you been married now?
32 years, 8 to 1, and 33, 8 to 1, and 25 to the other.
So, you've been married 8 years. Tell us about your wife.
She saved my life. I mean, it was, she can listen. She's hearing this. It's in front of her. I don't mind. I'll try to do it without crying because it was fantastic. But she was also on the floor. She was in the bond room for 25 years. You might even know her, Jim. I don't know.
Did she know Jed?
I don't know.
Ask
Did
her.
did you know
Jade.
Jed? JED? What pit were you in?
I was in the 5 year.
She says yes. She knew who you were. She's 100% Serbian. Today's their Eastern Orthodox Christmas. Um, and we worked together, and she knew my daughter, and my daughter, I had been divorced, but I got custody of my daughter after I got divorced. So she came to live with me full time, and then obviously then she meets my girlfriend Mila, who's now my wife, and they got along. They got along like a house on fire. There was apparently somebody that my daughter really wanted in her life, and it was great having my girlfriend be such an important have a really important role with my daughter, and it got to the point where they got really really close, and it was a tragedy for my wife to also have to go through what I had to go through, or watch me go through it. But at the same time, also the plus side of that is she had gotten married when she was very young in the south side of Chicago, and she lived in Hegewisch on the east side. So she was married at 18, had 2 kids by the age of 22, and was divorced. So she hadn't been married or had, she was single basically since she was 22 years old. And I met her in her late 40s, but she had had 2 kids, and she hadn't had a great upbringing herself, and she didn't make a lot of money as a single mom. Those 2 kids had every excuse to be, assholes and ne'er-do-wells. And when I met them both, they're outstanding stand-up individuals with great jobs, great morals. And I thought, wow, that's powerful. Here's a woman that doesn't have 2 pennies to put together.
How'd she save your life?
Because she was there when my daughter died. And I was in her house when my daughter died. I mean, not in her house, but I moved in the day my daughter died. I moved in with her because I didn't want to be alone. But she was there for the entire horrible 60 days afterwards. But like I said, I was just so impressed with the fact that her kids had every reason to not be good people. They didn't have a lot of things. They missed out on a lot of things. Their dad wasn't in their lives, and they were both, and they still both are, stand-up people. And No, they introduced me as their stepdad, and it's a huge honor. I've been in their lives now for we've been married 8 years, but I knew her for probably 3 years before we got married. So the best part of 11, 12 years. And I got a new family, which that's the big part that saved my life. I have my wife and then her two kids. And now we have two grandkids. I mean, it's I couldn't have fallen into a better situation. And it's a really shitty thing to have her walk into. I mean, she's dating this guy. All of a sudden, his daughter dies. I mean, oh my god. I mean, that's got to suck. And then, she took me in, and I was in the middle of I was a newly divorced guy. You know how that goes. Well, you don't know how that goes, but I gave my ex-wife almost everything I had, so I was starting over, and I couldn't have been luckier to start over with her two kids and her and my wife. So it was a blessing in disguise because that's exactly what I needed. The only other thing that I really needed at that time was I don't know if this was the hand of God. I'm going to say it probably was, but I got approached by DePaul University to be a professor of finance, an adjunct professor of finance for a year there. And they have like 40 finance professors because it's such a big school. And they save one or two spots for like celebrity people, like people that are on TV a lot and talk about finance on TV a lot. And I got in their scope, and they approached me and they gave me they gave me a class. And I don't know if you're a finance major or not, but if you are, you'll know this class. It's a 400 level finance class, and it's called stock and bond valuation. It's probably one of the worst finance classes. It's so boring. It's not easy. But you know what, Jim? I took it. It was the hardest work I've ever done in my life for hardly any pay. But it has a legitimizing factor when you go places and they know you're an adjunct professor of finance at DePaul University. That does help with things. But the thing that I took it from the most was I got to live with my wife, and I got to inherit two kids that were looking up at me all the time about and asking me for my advice because I still was a dad. I had a lot to give, but I didn't have anybody to give it to. Well, I'm in front of 40 kids that are taking this finance 400 level class, and I got to tell you, it was transformational for me because I had 40 21-year-olds that were just a little older than my daughter when she passed away, looking at me every single day, wanting to know what I was going to say, wanting to know what I was thinking, having me help them with their lives. I was like a surrogate parent to 40 kids right away. I had 40 people in that class. I had no drop ads. They all stuck with me the entire time. I took them all on the floor of the Board of Trade, showed them what finance was and capitalism at its at its best, working in the pits. And it was a hard class, but I made it worth their while. I didn't make it easy on them. The final exam, I wanted to know that they knew the subject. I didn't want to have them guess a bubble, A, B, C, or D. So I gave them my final exam in that class was 10 questions in a blue book. It was all essay because I wanted them to know. I didn't care if the numbers were right or wrong. I wanted them to know the concept, and they did, and it was great. The chairman of the DePaul Student Union Finance Club was in that class, and man, was that a breath of fresh air to be able to give of myself to young kids right after your daughter dies. That was so therapeutic. I mean, I can't explain to you how therapeutic that was, and at the same time, getting to live and inherit two great kids that my wife already had in their formative years as well. That was maybe that was the hand of God. I mean, it probably was. It really got me through that first year and a half, maybe 2 years. So I had a lot to give, and I gave it, and it was awesome. And I still look back fondly with that. They don't hardly pay you anything as a finance adjunct professor, but it was still one of the best experiences of my life to be able to be a mentor to those 40 kids, women and men. And after it was all over and said and done, even as hard as I made that final exam, they invited me out for a couple of dinners and stuff. They're old enough to have a few beers with you, so you could get out there and socialize with them, and it was fantastic. And so it's the luck of the draw, maybe a little bit. Maybe you create a little bit of your own luck, but at the same time, maybe God knew that's exactly what I needed, and he put it in front of me. So I'm very, very grateful because that really got me through those two things.
So we are coming out of the holidays. How'd you do?
I did okay. I did. I don't think, like I said to you the last time, the holidays aren't as bad as the birthdays and death days. Those are harder, I think. But I don't do. I had another friend of mine very close to me in London who lost his son at the same age on a tragic. Just the guy was mountain climbing and fell off. Slipped and fell down a ravine and passed away. And and he takes that day off every year. That's not good for me. I need to be busy. I don't want to be. I can't sit around and mope. So people do it differently. But the birthdays and death days he would take off. I wouldn't do that. I've yeah, he hasn't changed his kid's bedroom since he passed away. It's still the exact same way it was the day he walked out of the house. I can't do that either. I have to, move on. But the holidays are hard because, a great example. One of my daughter's close friends has been, she's married, and so every time I see one of her close friends get married, that tugs at my heart. It's like a gut punch. And then this one, which a very close friend of hers, of my daughter's, announced over the holidays that she was pregnant, and that hurt. I mean, I was so happy for her, but it really hurt. That was one of those opportunities. Um, and that brings up another good story because I don't have the opportunity to have my own flesh and blood give me a grandchild. However, I will say another story that my wife's son in his late 30s now. He's married and he's got two kids, which are now my grandkids, step grandkids, whatever you want to call them. But there was a time about 5 or 6 years ago when the first one was born, and his wife was here with us. They brought the baby down to show us, and actually, I was there for the birth. I was the only one there for the birth. I was happened to be in the city, and I made it to the hospital, so I got to hug him right when he came out of the delivery room. But I was lamenting the fact. I don't know why. I was kind of angry, maybe and I said, she says, "What is it like to have a grandson?" And I said, "Well, it's not really my grandson. I mean, it's like it's you and Paul's grandson, and Paul's, Mila's son. He's not my son per se. It's not a blood thing, so." It's not really, and I don't know, I had a beer or something, and she had a Mick Ultra or whatever they drink now. And she kind of slammed it down on the table and she looked me right in the eye. The baby was having a nap. And she says, "Oh, basically, how dare you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, I don't, I mean, she's not old. I don't know where this wisdom came from. She was in her early 30s when she was speaking to me this sternly. She says, "I don't want to hear that ever again." I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "My dad's dead. My husband's father has passed away. You're all they got." I apologized. So I love them like my own. They only they only have one grandpa, and it's me. And I wear that hat well, and I'm happy. And I can't wait to be in their lives as long as I can. I went to Vanderbilt last night to get a checkup from the doctor to make sure that that's the case. So that was a pretty, moving moment when she told me to shut the f up. I'm the only grandfather they have. So either act like it or get out. So I love it. I absolutely love it. And I've gotten rid of that thought. It doesn't matter if they're my blood or not. They don't know any better, and I don't care. So good stuff.
Do you take the role pretty seriously? Do you see
Yeah.
these kids? Do you see these kids from time
Yeah,
to
they
time,
come down.
or
Yeah, they come down a lot. Yeah, it's only a 6 hour drive from they're in they're in Valparaiso by you. So it's a 6 hour drive straight down 65.
so is that why you were living in Portage?
Yeah. Well, no,
Right,
I
but
wasn't. I wasn't living in Portage when she said that to me. I was living down here.
no,
That's
I mean you were. I just thought it was kind of odd that you guys were, a Hegewish Serbian and you living in Portage together by the high school and walking and seeing the lights on for the high school games. Um, That was, I think, our my first kind of exposure to you. You know, I'm listening to you now versus listening to you 5 years ago. What's different in these 5 years?
Oh, I would say I am I embrace I feel everything more now, both good and bad, which is fine. But I feel everything more now. I'm 60 years old. I'm in a good spot in my life. I love what I do. I love my job. I'm in Tennessee. It's beautiful. I have another beautiful house. The one thing I did keep over my divorce was my house in Scottsdale, Arizona. So, and that's beautiful. I love that. It's what's different now is I'm experiencing everything in the here and now. When before I was just trying to survive. You know, I got divorced. And at the same time, my industry went away. You know, you were like, you know what it's like. The floor was gone. I didn't have any other skills per se, and except for the media skills, which then that takes time to build that up. But at the same time, I struggled like a lot of other people did. I went upstairs. I didn't try to trade it. I was a broker. I had a couple of big accounts, but you know, the great thing about that is you make good money with the big accounts. But the bad thing about that is if one of them leaves, there goes 50% of your income. Um, so I was a broker for a while, and then there was a while where I had three jobs. I was a broker. I was doing, you know, the books for an import export business. I was doing anything I could to survive, trying to build that brand and try to build my. And so now that I'm not to a point where I'm going to say I'm gonna relax and skate, I'm not. I'm still working hard. I've got an agent. I'm always looking for more work. I love what I do, but I am embracing both the good and bad. I'm trying to be in the here and now and just enjoy it. Stop and smell the roses. I've always had that ability. I think we talked about this the last time we were on, but you know, I never identified as something. I partook. I was always involved, but I never made me. I was a trader, and that was my identity. No, I was me, and I happened to be a trader. I was me, and I happened to play football at Colorado. I never. I always had my own identity. I didn't ever really identify as somebody. And I'll never forget my buddy who ended up going to play, and he started for the Texas Longhorns at center. When we were in high school, we were both heavily recruited together, and we were, you know, twin towers of Naperville. But on the last game, when we were playing in front of 10,000 people at our home stadium, I actually looked over at him. I said, try to remember the smell of the grass right now. It was like, you know, 9 o'clock at night on a fall evening, you know, where it's a little misty, a little dew. I said, pick up the grass and smell it right now. Remember this moment for the rest of your life. It's never going to happen again. I mean, to say that as an 18-year-old kid, I think is probably pretty cool because I could tell right then and there that was going to be a big moment in our lives forever and ever. Amen. And it was. And I always had that ability to try to be in the present, to try to remember. Now, things get in the way, like divorces or deaths and stuff like that, that kick you out of the present, or not having a job and trying to, you know, put food on the table for a while. You have to do what you got to do. But now that I'm 60 and I love what I do and I've got a little bit of a brand, it's a little bit easier. But the difference between me then, I was probably more in the survival mode back then still, and today I'm definitely living in the here and now and just experiencing it all, and that, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes it's bad, but I experience it all and I don't gloss over it. That's the difference.
What makes the cow guy cry? Tell your friends about it. And you can get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever Adriana feels like she wants to put it. And of course, you can watch it on a WJOB 1230's YouTube page if you want to see the cow guy in all of his glory. Why don't we end it there? Scott, thanks as always.
Yep, cool.